Orhan, for inviting me to this event. I have been here, I think, once or twice before, so I feel like coming back home. I think it's probably worth noting up front that convening occasions like this has become quite frequent in the region. I mean, this occasion of having Israelis and Palestinians discuss their economic relations is probably just one more in a long list of events which have taken place recently, whether in the Dead Sea or Amman or outside or even in Jerusalem or elsewhere in the region. Quite clearly, or in DC for that matter, quite clearly the international interest in invoking this file after many years of negligence is worth noting, and I think this is not coincidental. There are hopes that at last there is a chance of some sort. I'm not sure that there is a chance, but of course we on the Palestinian side are excited that at last someone is talking seriously, just talking seriously about the problems in the region, in the area of economic relations between the two sides. This revived interest in the topic of economic relations between Palestine and Israel reflect, in fact, serious concerns among many sides in the international community. On account of the rising rates of unemployment and poverty in the Palestinian territories, Mr. Niksic gave a set of data which are not as alarming as most Palestinians would like to project. Like he says, growth rate in GDP, it just dropped from, say, 10% to 5%, but 5% is not bad. Well, to tell you the truth, not challenging the figures, because I think these are accurate figures, I think that the morale and the feelings in the West Bank are far more negative than is reflected by this figure. And the situation, to tell you the truth, is really alarming and should cause concern in the international community, and probably no less importantly in Israel itself. See, people are very demoralized and desperate for a variety of reasons, and that causes a lot of concern on the sides of many, including, I think, many Israelis. Now, we Palestinians, and I think most Israelis, and the international community at large, are very interested in trying to establish some sort of a turn in the discourse of events. See, I mean, we cannot accept this. I mean, I just don't know whose interest is served by what's going on the ground, really. I challenge that this would serve the better interests of Israel. I mean, I'm close to many Israeli friends. I just can't understand why bitterness on our side and frustration on our side would serve Israel. Well, you have to be really a freak, a maniac of some sort, to think that the misery caused there would serve my interests. Really, I don't think that many Israelis would actually subscribe to this. So, yes, we have to do something about trying to save what could be saved and do it fast. So this would also probably, hopefully, would try to change the atmosphere of relations between the two sides. I mean, going on in this direction of dehumanizing each other is a crime. It's not a mistake. We have to understand that we, both sides, have got something to talk about. We've got our concerns, and the Israelis have got their concerns. That's true. See, probably we can do something. Now, the area which lends itself more or less to achieving something is not, I think, not at this stage, is not politics. I think this should wait for some time. maybe economics. I mean, there is probably a happy marriage of interests, and that would probably create a new start, which would probably give an impetus to developments in other directions. Now, if we are to achieve economic growth in Palestine, given the scarce economic resources that we have, you know, you talk about one of the poorest countries in the region in terms of economic resources. Really, I mean, I live in a village in close to Turkey, and it is representative of West Bank villages. You know, natural resources are scarce, very scarce. See, so how to achieve, you know, the word our host says, to achieve prosperity, growth, and independence. Yeah, that's the word you used. I mean, that is, well, there's no recipe that could get us this. No, I mean, just forget it. Palestine will never have an independent economy, and I'm not sure that we look forward to that. See, I'm not sure. Independent? That means poverty, and real poverty. We want fair economic relations with Israel. See, if we like it or not, and we better like it, that Israel is our main economic partner, and it will stay like that for many years to come. We have got very hard feelings with the Israelis, very hard feelings. You know, my colleague has just cited a number of grievances. I mean, I give him an A on that, but I can give also an A+ for someone who gives even a longer list of grievances. See, but at the end of the day, who is our main trading partner? It's Israel. Do you know what is the percentage of our exports that go to Israel? 90%. And all the goodwill in the world, which is a lot of it, has helped us export 10% outside Israel. See? Whereas 90% goes to the country which has least goodwill vis-a-vis Palestine. See? Well, China and the US are not the best friends in the world. And you can guess that they are among the top trading partners to each other. See? So it's not that I'm calling for this paradigm between Israel and Palestine. No, but we can build on economic relations with Israel a lot. Now, if we don't have ample economic resources, then what's the starting point? The starting point is that we need lot of aid. Palestine needs aid. And any talk which portrays this as an utterly negative relation, I mean, this is bizarre. There are problems in aid. Of course there are problems. You know, but to come to a conclusion that because there are problems, we have to have an independent economy where aid is zero. No, definitely. We cannot afford this luxury at all. Now, the good news here is that Kerry, our friend Kerry, talks about pumping in $4 billion in aid, which, of course, if it comes, can do a lot. But then there is a big if. I think if the money comes, okay, then that's good. But is that all we need? No. My friends, we have a long list of issues that we have to settle with our Israeli counterparts. Aid is not with the Israelis. Aid is with donors. But we have real dividing issues with Israel and with non-Israelis for that matter. Now, I have taken the opportunity of putting together what might be an agenda of issues to discuss with Israel in due course. I was in Paris in the Palestinian team negotiating economic relations with Israel 20 years ago, just 20 years ago, 93, 94. I would like to venture a list of topics that we have to discuss with the Israelis the next time we sit around a negotiation table. Issue number one, restoring access to national economic resources is very high on the list, meaning land and water resources. We cannot get very far if we don't restore our access to our resources, especially in the Jordan Valley and in overlooking hills. I mean, it would be, I mean, it is a tragic joke to see settlers, Israeli settlers, going so freely in the Jordan Valley when Palestinians are denied access to their land. I mean, this is bizarre, really. I mean, this is a shame. We have to do something about this, and this is not scoring a political point. We need the land because this is the land which we will use to invest the so-called $4 billion, which hopefully will come one day. How could we spend so much aid in investments pouring into Palestine if we rule out the Jordan Valley, if you rule out this, if you rule out that? What to do with the money? See? Now, two, mobility of goods and persons across border points between Israel and the Palestinian territories has to be considerably improved. It did in some ways, but not enough. A lot more is needed, really. If we talk about cooperation between two partners which are eager to facilitate trade between the two sides, I suppose so, then there is a lot to be done. Now, Israel does not conduct trade on purely business grounds. There is a lot of politics or security grounds for that matter. I mean, they can always say it is security. I know the Israelis, I know them well. I mean, this magic formula, which is pulled out of this magic box, security, we are careful about the security of Israel because we pay the price for the security of Israel. So how many times the Israeli security people have discovered bombs in a truckload of tomato across border points? 0 times. In years and years, never. See? Because there is no fool in Palestine who would really think of sending a bomb in a truckload of tomato. He knows it will not work, and he knows that he will pay a fatal price for that. So let's just talk business when we talk about security. There is so much that could be done, feasibly done, by way of facilitating trade across with Israel, across checkpoints. 3, trade relations and mobility of persons between Gaza and the West Bank should also be resumed. You know, this sounds absurd. It sounds a far cry now. With Hamas there, oh, who cares? Who wants to see Hamas all around the place? But this is playing into the hands of people that we don't all fancy, see. We all have, I think, we all have a vested interest in trying to move the economics of Gaza forward. Try to, you know, poverty doesn't serve anybody, and Gaza is suffering a lot. And I think we have been for many years the second largest trading partner for each, West Bank and Gaza, after Israel. Israel was, for us, it is still the largest trading partner. For Gaza, it is not in terms of exports, but they import a lot, of course, from Israel, a lot. But we have to do something about this. I know that there is a lot of security involved there, but you know, Israel for many years cherished ideas of doing something really ingenious by way of connecting the West Bank and Gaza. 4, regulations relative to traffic across border points with Jordan should be restructured on more objective and equitable grounds. Jordan is very important to us, very important. Jordan is very important to Israel as well. They were friends. They are still friends, I guess. The traffic of goods and persons across border points with Israel suffers a lot, really. I mean, it is incredibly abnormal. I wouldn't say impossible, because as you can see, I mean, there is trade with Jordan, but nothing compared to what it could be potentially. There's a lot that could be done in that direction. 5, the flow of Palestinian workers into the Israeli labor market constitutes a vital component of bilateral relations between the two sides. Let me tell you one thing. Living in a town like Halabta, where I come from, seeing the hundreds of workers coming back home late in the day from Israel makes me happy. These people are deriving their livelihood the hard way by commuting daily to Israel. They are not a cause of any security hazard. I always ask them, the Memshal period in Tulkarem, I live in Jerusalem, how many times you discovered that this worker was carrying a gun while moving in the border, through the border point? You wouldn't believe what I heard from the Memshal. 0. As I talk about the Memshal of Tulkarem, I don't talk about 0 times. Because these guys are sensible people. They know that they come back home with 300 shekels at the end of the day. This is, to us, this is a lot of money. This facet of the relation between Palestine and Israel is a success story which can be built on, and it can be considerably improved, really. It was, by the way, very high on the list of our concerns with the Israelis in 1993. And we agreed, at the time we did come to an agreement, which was not implemented. 6, economic relations between the Palestinians in the West Bank and those living inside Israel across the Green Line, who are labeled Israeli Arabs, see, can be a big conduit to more substantive economic relations with Israel. This is, again, I mean, the seeds of a big success story. Now, Jenin, Tulkarem, Kalkili, and even Nablus. By the way, even Hebron, which is so distant from urban Israel, like the Galilee or like Tel Aviv. Hebron is quite distant. If you go on a Saturday, you will find hundreds of vehicles, Israeli vehicles, in Hebron, but certainly much more in Jenin or Tulkarem. We want this relation to be more than one-time shopping. We want them to establish joint ventures among each other, see, and this is possible. Talking about joint ventures, this is number 7 on the agenda of next negotiations with Israel. I believe that the Palestinian leadership should take a clear stand relative to the whole question of joint ventures with Israelis, whether Arabs or non-Arabs. Israelis. Clearly, this form of economic cooperation is still severely constrained by political and social inhibitions on the Palestinian side. It's like my friend knows, I mean, the word tatbiya. What is tatbiya? Normalization. They say this is premature normalization. So there's a lot of psychology there. But we know all too well that there are cases of joint investments involving even big shots from Palestine. So why to have this dual standards, double standards? Is this kosher or not? If it is kosher, it should be kosher to everybody, to all business people, not only to the rich of Palestine. 8, the tourism sector offers enormous economic opportunities to both countries. Enormous, that's the word. Relatively speaking, to Palestine, it is more than enormous. It is far, in absolute terms, in Israel, the gains to tourism are far greater than what we get. But in relative terms, in Israel, no. It is much more important to us, tourism. We and Israelis have to negotiate how to build on that, because you can't really have two separate tourism sectors, one in Palestine and one in Israel. A tourist is interested in both. 9, I got just one more point. A very important point, a very important item on the list of development prerequisites relates to aid management. Aid management. Here I don't talk about volume of aid. I mean, I would be extremely upset if I hear an argument in favor of minimizing the flow of aid to Palestine. I mean, this is absurd, this is criminal. We need the money. Israel is a prosperous economy, and they receive a lot of aid. And there are countries which are far more endowed with resources, and they receive a lot of aid. How about Egypt? So to talk about Palestine to be aid-free, I mean, this is crazy. What I talk about is not that. What I talk about is management of aid. As a Palestinian and more or less well-known economist, I mean, I had to be quoted at all negatively that I am critical of the management of aid. But I tell you, in Palestine, this is a very live file. Management of aid, certainly at the level of the Palestinians, certainly, but at the level of donors themselves. יש בעיה. יש בעיה גדולה. Really. Aid management in Palestine is a problem. When you talk about $1.8 billion at one time of aid, then there are many hopefuls who think that they can snatch an opportunity of a sort. The answer is yes. There is a lot of waste. Do you know that managing of aid, the cost of managing aid coming to Palestine could be incredibly high. Incredibly high. It could be up to 50% of aid, maybe even more. See, that just one company managing aid coming from country X, then they give it to a company from that respective country, say, operating in Palestine. Do you know how much this country get? How much this company they get? 20%, 30%, maybe more, out of the aid volume they manage. The Palestinians are extremely nervous about this, extremely nervous. And they start using big words. Now this hurts, because we are grateful to donors. We need aid. We don't want to offend someone who gives you millions of dollars and to tell him that you are corrupt. I mean, this is crazy. But then how could we stay silent when you see a lot of mismanagement of aid in Palestine? We have to press a red button. And by the way, my job now is the director of a governance center in Palestine. Governance. So questions of monitoring the governance of donors, the governance of the PA, the Palestinian Authority, is our daily work. We get money from donors. My institute gets money from donors. And they keep lecturing us about transparency and about good governance. Now we have to tell them that charity begins at home. You have also to think of governance at your end. Let me just conclude by one thing. As you can see, our agenda with the Israelis is a fairly long and rich agenda. And non-Israelis, because donors are not Israelis. See, Jordan is not Israel. When we talk about economic relations with Jordan, that's Jordan. Tourism is not all Israel and Palestine. Anyway, when we talk with the Israelis, we have to embark on a long, comprehensive negotiation process. At Oslo and Paris was, for us, the Economist, it was Paris, not Oslo. We met in Paris. We met, I guess it was probably 10 times, a total of 10 times, 3 days each. So maybe it was a total of 30 days, maybe, plus or minus. I think we need to embark on a far more time-demanding process between the Israelis and Palestinians. We have a lot to discuss and to negotiate. And I think that we both have acquired a lot of experience in doing business with each other. However, learning from the past, and as someone who was part of Paris negotiations, and then subsequent contacts with the Israelis, but outside the area of negotiations in an exercise like this, I would tell you that if negotiations with the Israelis are to succeed, they cannot be bilateral. They should not be bilateral. They should involve a third party. Otherwise, it will be a dialogue of the deaf. We will just talk and talk and talk. I cannot but remember that in Paris, every time, almost daily, at the late evening, I forgot the name of our Israeli friend who was heading the Israeli team. He was a friend, but he used to say, at the end, trying to sell us his views, and then we failed to buy his advices, and then at the end of the day he would say, take it or leave it. Take it or leave it. Well, you can guess what we did. We took it. We will not permit this happen again. There is more than take it or leave it. And the only way, I guess, maybe there are other ways, to have something which is more fair between the two sides is to have a neutral, business-like third party. And I think that there are a number of eligible candidates to play the role. But my guess is that the quartet is probably the most eligible. The Palestinians are not great fans of our friend Mr. Blair. Really, he lost great points on our side a lot. But the quartet can survive probably without Blair in the future. But nonetheless, we have to conduct negotiations with the Israelis in the presence. If our friend, the Secretary of State, Kerry, would like to play a role, he's most welcome to take the job. Dan, how about you taking the job?
Thank you, Professor. 2.5 minor comments. First of all, there's an interesting report about Palestinian workers and permits for Palestinians to work in Israel. And one of the interesting, it's Israel, Bank of Israel who that commissioned this report. And one of the interesting points in this paper is that opening the door for day permits for Palestinian workers does not necessarily benefit the Palestinian economy because it creates a it does not incentivize high-skilled labor. So the engineers and the high-tech people who are earning average wages in Palestine, whereas you have perhaps Palestinian workers, if they're earning 300 shekels a day, 25 days a month, that's 7,500 shekels a month. That means that they're earning quite significantly more for being either farm hands or construction, etc., etc. And one of the recommendations of this report was to increase permits, no doubt, but to do so in a selective way that does not disincentivize high-skilled labor, engineers, etc., etc. That's number one. Number two is it was reported in the newspapers, and I even heard some very proud voices in the Ministry for Regional Cooperation. Israel is allowing today trucks from Turkey to land in Haifa and go straight through to Jordan, and then to deliver goods to Jordan or even into Iraq, and then come back as well. Why? Because the route from Syria is now blocked because of the because of the civil war in Syria. This means, and they're doing this very swiftly. They're landing and they're taking. There's a convoy of I think 20 trucks with the police in front and police in the back, and they zoom through without it. So basically showing that if Israel wants to facilitate quick transport and quick passage through Sheikh Hussein Bridge, we know how to do this. And one of the big problems is, and you mentioned the bombs or who is going to put bombs in containers of tomatoes. One of the big problems is, even that has been taken care of. There is today, the Dutch, if I remember correctly, have donated the scanners, the big scanners, and yet Israel still demands back-to-back unloading, which causes a tremendous delay of, basically you have to unload the truck, they'll scan every truck, they're also willing only to scan trucks that all the goods are uniform, so they're not willing to scan. Israel today is not going to scan tomatoes and cucumbers. Why? I'm not really sure that I understand. Hopefully on Thursday I'll get some answers in that meeting. We have an interesting trade facilitation meeting, but that's an example of not making things as easy as possible in order to help the Palestinian economy. And just one thing, you mentioned the issue of normalization, and I think that, I don't know if everybody knows what normalization or anti-normalization is. Normalization or the anti-normalization campaign is a Palestinian campaign that is saying that Israelis and Palestinians cannot and should not be encouraged or even allowed to talk as though they're Germans and French, as though things are normal. So whereas a German and a Frenchman can talk business because the situation between Germany and France is a normal situation, a Palestinian businessman and an Israeli businessman should not be allowed, promoted, encouraged to talk business, or Israeli children and Palestinian children should not be promoted to play football together because there's an occupation and it's an abnormal situation that has to first be remedied, and then we can go into normalcy. And that is something that, as an NGO, I can tell you, we suffer or we have to deal with on a day-to-day basis. As you mentioned, the richer and more powerful businessmen on both sides know how to either ignore or circumvent, or they don't don't really care about it. And the smaller ones do have to take this into consideration because there's going to be public shaming, and even more so. So just so that you know what the term normalization. And now, if there are any questions or comments, we'll take 3 and then we'll answer.